with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my face. Work a job every day till your dreams fade away. Like a card, never change, play the game that we say. I need a break. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on. Face on when I chase like that, yeah, I play so strong with a knife in the back. I'ma swing home run like a baseball bat. Gonna see me rise, you can hate on that. I don't play both sides, doing me no cap. I'ma ride or die for my dreams on tap. I'ma fly real high, you ain't see me slack. No, it's not how you fall, it's how you get right back up. That's how you get tough, calluses on my hands so rough. Yeah, I call your bluff, I'm not the one. Mess with me and come out with none, cause I'm so done. You had your fun, and now you're gonna face down the barrel of the gun. Cause I got a full clip with your name on it, but I'ma let you slide cause you ain't worth it. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on.
Storytime stream where we do this each and every week. We usually do these by request, or there's some content that we do together, but this is something different. We're going to be trying something new this week. We are going to be trying random stories that we found on fanfiction.net. We are choosing today to do random love stories, whether or not these are with original characters or with the series or whatnot. We don't know. We're going to be checking this out. We've got at least 3, maybe 4 if we have time. So we're going to see what we can do, because at least one of these is pretty short, or at least it looks short. We're going to be starting out with our first one from the series that is hot right now, Spy X Family. One of the top series right now, an anime. So if you're watching it, you know, hey, you know what's going on. If you don't, the story is basically about a spy who goes by the handle of Lloyd Forger. He has to take in a daughter and a wife to complete a mission. And he basically adopts a daughter that is a psychic and falls, well, has an interesting coincidence that ends up with a relationship with a female assassin, unbeknownst to any of them of each of their abilities. Well, Anya, the daughter, does know everybody's abilities because she is psychic. But we get to go into a little bit of this. We are starting with a story called Glucose, Maltose, and Diabetes by Danbu. And their summary is sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients to create a perfect little family with the Voyager. Was not stopping until she learned to make some tasty dessert for Lloyd and Anya. So, we're going to get a lovely little story, I believe, of using canon romance, I guess. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Yor was in the bookstore with Anya. She and her daughter decided to have some quality time together when Lloyd regretfully announced that the referral was made and his expertise was needed in the hospital. Immediately, and it was Sunday, Yor thought they didn't have other doctors working that time, or perhaps medical culture she wasn't familiar with. All the time they spent together, Yor knew her husband was a hard-working man, passionate individual who treasured Anya and worked or wanted to do best for his daughter. Oh wait, since when did Yor thought of Lloyd as her husband? he wasn't hers to begin with. Their marriage was a sham, but the idea made her face flush, and she did hide behind the nearest bookshelf. Anya's perceptiveness showed then. She sent Yor a smug look. She sighed. Yor had no idea what was going on in the child's mind sometimes. Anya was proven to be a keen observer, but like all children, she was curious about many things and tended to explore in places where she shouldn't be. Yor could only hope that Anya would leave the bookstore without her. Looking around, she seemed to be in the food section, with books had a nice eye-catching covers, with pastries only world-class chefs could make. There were eclairs that had walnuts on the top, sugar biscuits cut in the shape of a shark, a bowl of noodles with beef broth, and many more. However, a certain book caught Yor's eye. No, hun. Looking at you is dessert for me. 10 simple desserts to warm your husband's cold heart. What was the title implying? That these foods could warm up Lloyd's heart? But no. Lloyd was anything but cold to her. He brought her tea when she was at home late, asked her on dates even if he didn't have to now that Yor knows the demanding psychiatrist must be. She shook her head. That was not the point. The author claims that the recipes inside were so delicious that it changed someone. Then maybe he could help her non-existent cooking skill. Grabbing the book, she flipped through the pages until she decided to try the simplest recipe written. Mango float. It was appeared easy. The instructions were clear and had pictures drawn in detail that she immensely appreciated. A character of the author was even drawn reminding the reader that the time for how long it should be cooled so it would serve without content scattering. With her decision made, Yor nodded to herself. She knew she wasn't the best cook, and pained her to have Lloyd, a busy man, cook for the family every time. So no, today is the day Yor Forter learns how to cook. She would make the perfect summer dessert for 2 people. She loved sharing his floating mango. All 3, after all. She wouldn't let dear brother miss the chance of tasting her cooking. Alright, so let's go on to chapter 2 of this. Yor personally has never liked sweets. She ate dessert, candies, and fruit pies. Offered to her, but her palate didn't crave such sugar. So much that she was purposely strode to the nearest grocery store to pick out the ingredients mentioned in the book. 5 ripe mangoes, 4 cups of heavy cream. The first ingredient was already taken care of. She chose the yellowest of the bunch, and copied the woman in the front, of who took one fruit, examined the skin for bruises, smelled part of it that once had the stalk, and honestly had no idea of what kind of scent she was expecting. But her nose caught the sweet odor, which might be a sign of ripeness. Currently, she stood in the middle of the aisle, gazing at the different curtains of creams, labels Yor was unfamiliar with. A sudden wave of dizziness passed as her eyes traveled through the names. Thick cream, all-purpose cream, heavy whipping cream. To her dismay, they were all cream, and looked alike. Examining one's natural panel on the back, Yor noticed the difference of fat content, and apparently this one she had added vitamin A. Her mind immediately pictured Anya. She wanted her child to grow up strong and healthy like her brother, whom seldomly got sick. But due to her nutritious meals, which she admits tasted questionable. The other creams were available, had very little to no vitamins inside. Glancing at the list, the author did not specify what kind of heavy cream she needed for the snack. Yor could ask for someone to save her from her impending headache, if only the store wasn't deserted. With a sigh, she placed the heavy whipping cream inside the basket, hoped for her choice wouldn't fail her later. Yor's new dilemma was biscuits. Unlike the creams, where she found the heavy variety, albeit a different one she needed. Yor faced the neatly stacked packages of local foreign-made biscuits with desperation, its label minuscule, comparable to the huge collection. Graham crackers. It was a depiction of a brown rectangular cracker, each containing a score on the line, easily separated, and Yor wondered if it was tasted like, since they looked nothing like biscuits from before her. This aisle had plenty of sugar cookies, different shapes and sizes, canned ones that claimed to be the best. Price wasn't an issue for Yor. Her missions paid her more than enough. Even living with a dependent, she still had money to spare. The problem was looking for an appropriate alternative. The book didn't tell her any substitutes for the ingredient, and she never imagined having the complication when she purchased it moments ago. To be frank, she was beginning to regret her decision now. Perhaps she could persuade Carmilla to teach her again. In the end, Yor added her biscuit in a blue box of saltine biscuits. It seemed like an appearance as the graham crackers, but paler and smaller. It was ones she could find without other flavors mixed in. Then she thought about the salt content of the cracker and the sweetness of the ripe mango. She chose surely the flavors wouldn't clash with each other, right? Yor wanted to prove someone, herself mostly, that the cooking wasn't a lost cause. And that's it. Apparently this first story is only 2 chapters and doesn't end. Well, definitely sounds like a bad mistake for Yor in this story. If you're into Spy X Family, definitely sounds like she is going to have a very sludgy meal. That's all I can say. Probably not the best story to begin here on, and probably not the best story to even get into. So our first random story, I like it. It's good. I just wish there was more to it. Let's go to a story from Demon Slayer. This is we randomly chose a romance story. And we're gonna go here. Azura cannot keep away from the Kanjuro. And it just may be that Kanjuro cannot keep away from him either. Or Akaza, excuse me. So the flames still bloom. Even if it turns to ashes, the flames still bloom. So we're getting a romance story between Kanjuro and Asuka from Demon Slayer here. So this is definitely going to be interesting. It says it's complete. It doesn't look like it's got chapters unlike the other ones, so we're going to see what we got here. Even if it turns to ashes, the flames still bloom. Asuka closes his eyes. All that is written within darkness behind his eyelids is Kanjuro, the voice that plagues him, infiltrating the confines of his mind to whisper the untruths. The image of golden hair and red eyes haunting him. Even when his eyes are wide open, the taste that smears itself into his tongue, imprints itself into his memory, sweet and sapid, whose body starves for, to sink its teeth into the nape of his neck, rip him into pieces until the fire in him has perished to nothing but dying embers. Who, try as he might, Asuka cannot keep himself away from, or Asuka cannot keep away from Kanjuro. And that may be Kanjuro who cannot keep away from him either. The taste of metal and flesh is thick and cloying at Asuka's tongue, choking upon the passageway up his nose and throat. Within its rancid flavor, his stomach churns, protesting, and swallows yet another slab of meat, hardly grinding down on the bones with his teeth, before they splinter apart. Hunger stated for the time being. He discarded the body belonging to a human male, his thinning hair indicator of his age in the rivers of gurgles beyond the trees. Watching as it floats away, the man's face warped into the very last emotion he had experienced: fear. His horrifying expression, torn open the stomach, intestines spilling forth, serves to make a rather grotesque sight. With a little luck, he'll turn his face down by the time his body is discovered by the villagers. It's hardly feasible that the man will be missed. From what Asuka had caught from the herons, whispers, loud gossip in the street vendors, and wives alike, the man had regularly lured in young girls with promises of love and riches, only to exploit them for his own selfish desires. A world without such a man, and much better world indeed. Scarlet taints the water from where he plunged his own fingers, washing the blood from his hands until it as if they had never been stained from the start. Blood may be gone, but he can still feel the strangle of the man as the life had drained out of him, heart beating slowly until it had died out entirely. Asuka's hand at his throat. His meal still sits heavy in his stomach, and if he had more caged regard taste, he would have scrubbed the tang of the man's flesh out of his mouth. He hasn't become unable to eat humans. The prospect of his body rejecting human flesh sends a shiver down his spine. He had seen what had happened to Kaguroi, his demon moon status stripped bare from him, his eye ruined for life. He had seen the fate of countless before him. No, it is far more simpler matter. The taste of human flesh. It is unpleasant. He may gorge himself on humans with the fill of his belly, but it had been to fulfill his singular goal, to gain strength. Unlike his tentative comrades, he has never indulged in the taste of flesh and blood, killing for the sick pleasure of it. There is nothing pleasurable about the taste of the tough, dry meat of humans he gnaws on, or the actions of sucking out the blood of their veins, thick and tasting of iron. Nothing pleasurable about it, except the taste that has lingered on in the tip of his tongue for weeks on end. Not even washing it out of his mouth could rid him of it. The aching of his teeth to sink into the flesh, the hunger of it he's racked into his body night after night, gnawing at his stomach, a hunger that even filling himself with the flesh of others has failed to satisfy. Hunger to such a degree he has begun to hallucinate, seeing things he has never seen, starving for what he's never starved for. Something flutters past him. He breaks free from his thoughts, blinking. On a reflex, his hand raises his hand, trapping it between his palms. His hand slides free to reveal a tiny flower, yellow and crumpled by the wind. The stem is bent, its petals rumpled, but the beauty remains. Smoothing out the petals with a thumb, surprise flickers through him when he finds the center stained red, blooming into yellow as it expands, the color reminiscent of something, someone, but he cannot put his finger onto what, who. It must look before the light of day, the true colors allowed to shine brightly. He wraps his fingers around the stem, lost in thought. He could easily crush it. Small, beautiful thing. If he applied much more pressure to his grip, broke the stem or ripped out the petals one by one. Perhaps that is what makes him cradle even more gently. Catches his attention more, that if he wishes, he can crush it into nothing, just as he can with Kiro. The flower still form from where he has been twisting it. Brings his fingers. There it is. Rengoku Kanjuro. Rengoku Kanjuro. Kanjuro. Azuka, or Akaza, closes his eyes, and all that is within him, the darkness behind his eyelids, is Kyojo. Oh, excuse me, Kyojo. I'm probably completely screwing this up. The voice that plagues him, infiltrating the confines of his mind, whispers the truth. The image of golden hair, red eyes haunting him. Even when his eyes are open, the taste smears onto his tongue, imprints itself into his memory, sweet and sapid. Who his body starves for, to sink the teeth in the nape of his neck, rip him to pieces until the fire in him has perished into nothing but dying embers. Who, try as he might, Asukaza cannot keep himself away from. A growl splices the air. The flower falls from his hand, sad and small, pathetic as it stares up at him. He scoffs, lifting his heel and grinding it into dust. A beat passes, another. His foot remains hovering. He takes another look at the flower, vibrance of its red, yellow yet having a chance to shine in the sun. Scowl twisting his lips. He withdraws his foot. His fingers find it once more, and he hesitates, a glance back and forth, as if to check if anyone is witnessing him, and he is tucking it into his vest. He strolls away, back in the direction he had been on his way to. The 5-petaled flower burned a hole in his vest. Here he is, once more, hidden between the shadows of the trees, watching the pillar from the distance. After days of following the other relentlessly, he had determined just how far he had to be for the other not to sense him. Today, too, he's not alone. He is a gaudy houri of his, sweeping by him, behind him, at every turn, from where he's perched high in the trees. Akaza watches, cheek resting against her hand, a glint of determination ever present in Kojiro's eyes, bright and cold, stark contrast to the warmth of the flame. It fascinates Akaza. No end to no end, he wonders, for the nth time, what had brought such a look in his eyes. His brisk walking and purpose takes each step to give way, that he must be occupied with a mission. His wild curls spill over his shoulder as he turns his head this way and that, scanning the clearing. Asuka wants to comb his fingers through them, danking the mess of red and gold until Kirijo is biting out. Pained whimpers, neck bare for him to see, to bite. The hunger that had him dormant in his belly stirs. Akaza bites down on his tongue. Kyojiro's eyes flicker over where he is hidden, slinks back. Temptation to step out and make his presence known is strong, but he stays put. Today he is not come for a fight, but to observe. Observe the brightness of that is Goku, Kojiro, or Kyojiro. Mystified over the mosaic that is intense towards the pillar, where his intentions truly lie, it is to quell the hunger that builds within him, growing stronger day by day, to watch over his prey until the moment to devour him comes to pass. Or is it for reasons entirely different, because Kyojiro has lit something inside him, that fire growing, burning him within? Or does it make sense that the undreamt dreams that have begun to plague him since meeting the other. Dreams of lifelong past. Kyojuro slows down, and Asuka does too, peeking up to watch as he busily handles his items, setting them down to the ground. It only when he retrieves a bundle of wood does he gain an understanding of why the other has stopped setting up camp here in the midst of the forest. He is either extremely confident or extremely stupid. And from what Akaza has experienced from the other, it's likely the former. Just for good measure, he takes the cautious sniff of the air. Kyojuro's scent remains the same, no trace of illness or poison tainting. It's like it had last time he had made himself known to the other. Last time he had departed from Kojuro long before the sun rose, taking the utmost care to affirm the area had been thoroughly permeated with his scent. Any demon who would stumble across the land would know who had been present there, who belonged to and avoided the area. At least they suffer the fate worse than death. To this day, he agonizes over whether what may have taken place if some other demon had stumbled across an ill Kyojuro, and not him. Surely they would have gleefully taken advantage of his weakness, ripped the pillar into ribbons without hesitance, would have left their mark on Kyojuro's body, snuffing out the fire, and rightfully belonged to Akaza. Sharp pain stood up in his arm, and he blinks down to find his palms bleeding from where he had dug his nails deep into. Its quick heal, the flesh stitching itself together. Even if he did not acknowledge it himself, there lay another reason he stalked Kyojuro, relentlessly, near obsessively. Only you are allowed to hurt me, I presume. Yes. These words may have been taken lightly by Kyojuro, but they held more weight than he would ever be delighted to find out. The mere thought for someone may inflict even a scratch on Kyojuro. His fist tightens, heat flushing through his body, ready to be unleashed to the next unlucky demon who dare even dream of laying a finger on Rengoku Kyojuro. Claiming he had simply been watching all these weeks would have made Akaza a liar. In a way, another blood seemed to end up on his hand, a wild animal lurking in the shadows, a demon who thought himself deserving of battling Kyojuro. He disposed of them all before Kyojuro even sights them, swinging up his fist, his fingers crushing their skulls, batting them up through that even the regeneration could not keep up, before they tying their limbs to the tree, and leaving them there for the sun to burn them up. None of them are worthy enough to go up against the pillar, to witness the formidable skills chip away from his perfection, with their own comparatively laughable ones. None is worthy but himself. To believe Kyojo hasn't noticed the lack of demons around him is to be a fool. A confused scrunch of his brows, his glance a sweep of the area, searching conveyed enough at the moment. The other has an inkling of who was behind its suddenly safety. There is no reason to confirm nor deny his suspicions. So what if the flame pillar is aware? He had already told him he only has the right to touch Kyojuro, battled him. By now, Kyojuro had finished setting up camp, now sitting cross-legged before the fire he had lit. Those red-ringed eyes that fascinated Akaza. are hidden behind their eyelids, his arms crossed over his chest. He sits straight as a board. He also is still, so still that Akaza could or would have thought he had fallen asleep upright. But he knows the other is better than that. The minute the rise and fall of Kyojiro's chest, the slight flaring of his nostrils, they are telltale signs of Kyojiro is engaging in the technique the demon slayers had perfected, total concentration breathing. If he shifts forward even a little, Kyojiro is sure to take notice of him. His keen senses sharpened even further by the technique, so he stays put, watching the flickering light of the fire, engaged in the dancing of the shadows of the night, casting their waltz over the plains of Kyojiro's serene face. Underneath the fire, he seems to shine even brighter, gold turning molten. The glittering image of Kyojiro bathing the firelight glows hazy, glowing gold burning before his eyes. It morphs into the memory of something else, of sweat on his brow, heat between his fingers. He glistened vision as a diamond as he squints up to the sky, shielding his eyes with his hand, body warm, warmer than he's ever been. Something sick curls in his stomach. If he shines so brightly before the fire, does he even shine even brighter before the sun, too? He does not dwell on it any further. What is it worth to ponder over things that cannot be? After all, Akaza can hardly bask in the sun without crumbling into fine powder, let alone marvel at Kyojiro, whose sheer rival and brightness of this very sun. For a moment longer he soaks in the sight. It would be so easy to step out, challenge Kyojiro to another fight, play cat and mouse, darting away back until he had Kyojiro where he wanted him the most, trapped under his grip, his skin against Asuka's teeth. Instead, he brushes off his vest and takes one last look at Kyojiro, the light playing across his face, and it turns on his heel, delving deeper into the forest. He doesn't bother going quietly. Something about Kyojiro waiting expectantly, goosebumps on his skin as he awaits Asuka's appearance, fills him with satisfaction he cannot comprehend. He doesn't get very far. Hardly, as he has stepped out from the forest, and the back of his neck prickles, spine stiffens, all his senses snap to attention, head jerking back towards the forest. When he had originally followed Kyojiro into the forest, he had been void of anyone but the two of them. But now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A hiss escapes from beneath his teeth. The presence of 6 more. There should be, and none of those 6 are the presence of human. Without a second thought, he's driving back in, hurtling past trees and bushes, his sense narrowed down to those 6 unwelcome presents. The closer he draws, the further his suspicions are confirmed. No human could pass a presence as dark and looming as these. His feet stutter and stop at creaking closer. He peeks out from behind a tree. Just as he felt 6 demons hurtle together deep in discussion. It does not take a seasoned demon to recognize them. They are nothing but fledgling demons. Demons that had eaten human or 2 suddenly thought of themselves above the rest. They're chattering amongst themselves, quarreling, a familiar sight. After all, demons never get along well. A prime reason why Muzan continued to reign superior. For those demons to even band together is a surprise. But what is even bigger surprise is how Muzan has not taken notice of them, yet disbanded them. Disbanded, as in killed. Isn't anything against 6 demons. one of them, a demon with a large, yellow-eyed set amid his forehead, says, and Asuka's eyes narrow. Another demon steps up, this one small, smaller than all of them, the runt of the pack. But if... He is shut down instantly. Serpent-tongued demon hissing an insult. Quiet, you coward! Are you scared of a human? When he receives no reply, he snarls in the blink of an eye, shoots out a wrapping around the small demon's throat before he can defend himself. You aren't fit to be a demon, the serpent-tongued demon says, his nails sinking into the neck. The smaller demon sputters out an apology, gasping at the end of its throat. I should kill you now. Leave you to rot. Enough. The serpent-tongued demon freezes, a fronted look on his face. His head whips towards the demon who has spoken. Asuka surveys him with interest. Out of all of them, it is clear he has the most power. His hulking size and testament to the fact. Let him go. As a result, it must mean he's the leader, as none would dare question him with his power, minuscule as it may be. The serpent-tongued demon seems to be battling between the obeying and continuing to squeeze the life of the smaller demon. In the end, he caves in, letting go with a disgruntled grunt. The one-eyed demon drops to the floor and gasps. It's clear from the exchange that these demons do not consider each other comrades. No, it's more likely that they are banded together for the time being to fulfill a common goal. The common goal. Kyojiro's presence lurking uncomfortably in the back of his head. The words uttered by yet another demon, this one with horns bulging from his head, confirm his suspicions. If we take the flame pillar's head to Master Kyobusu, he's sure to reward us generously. Mikauer crows, puffing out his chest, inflated with confidence. With its blood, we can grow stronger. Even to... He leans closer, shaking in excitement as he whispers furiously. Join the ranks of the 12 demon moons. The words are said with such confidence, it nearly surprises Asuka. The demons that truly thought themselves strong enough to challenge the demon moons. The prospect itself is laughable, and already he can feel the hysterical laughter building in his chest. If they had gone after Kyojiro, he would have had them hardly lift a finger to obliterate them all, for them to even think they would be able to harm the pillar. Asuka can't help it. He snorts. The reaction is instantaneous. All 6 demons jerk, alert, wheeling towards the sound. His cover's blown. Akaza emerges from where he's been hidden, not a trace of fear even as they hiss and growl at him, ready to leap onto him at given any moment. No, he is the epitome of joy, making the show of dabbling his eye. Please excuse me, he says, but this is all so amusing. I simply have to express my sentiments. The serpent-tongued demon flicks in and out and takes a bold step forward. Who do you? Stop. He's pulled back by the small demon, who shrinks back and scathes and looks absolute disgust he receives. Asuka examines the nails of the utterly bored. His eyes. Excuse me a second. The gasps that resound from the demons, having him chortling, waving away their shock. No need to grovel at my feet, he dismissed, with a flock of his hand as they spare slack-jawed. We're all demons here, aren't we? Just lumping himself in with these sorry creatures makes him sick, but he plays along anyway. Upper Moon 3, the large demon bellows. Out of them all, he seems to be least surprised. by his appearance. What business do you have here? The smile disappears off of Akasa's face. Oh, the courage, or more specifically, stupidity this demon had, to speak to Akaza as if they were equals. He tramples down the anger, curling his fingers behind his back, lest they lash out against his will. The business of Master Kibijutsu and the Demon Moon are of no matter to you, he says. The jab of the other ranks hardly subtle. The demon eyes darken. Even Akaza continues. I was simply passing by and took interest in what? He gestures to the group with a sweep of the hand. Such a large group of demons are doing together. Surely you know Master Kibijutsu does not tolerate demons banding together. For the first time, the demons look nervous. The fifth demon steps forward, presumably to explain, only to be shoved aside by the serpent-tongued one. Akasa's lip curls in distaste. Our meeting is of no coincidence, he exclaimed gleefully. His tongue slithers from his mouth, and Akaza wants to do nothing more than grab a hold of it and tear it out of his filthy mouth. With you, his tongue flicks, we can accomplish our goal. The anger that has been restrained whispers to him, let me loose, an example of those who think they can touch Rengoku Kyojuro. Still, he keeps it in his place, biding his time. Fox enters plasters across his face. He leans forward, as if curious. Oh, and what might that be? At this very moment, the forest shelters a pillar, one of the strongest slayers of all time. Nasty smile comes across his lips. With your powers, taking his head will be nothing. Oh, how I've craved to taste such a human. It grows molten heat in his chest, around him. His fellow demons seem to grasp at what he's inferring, to nod in agreement, muttering. Akaza tilts his head before grasping, as if he has just realized what the other means as well. I see. You lot, his fingers point in their direction. Wish to kill the pillar. They nod, eager. Akaza blinks, slow, and then delivers into laughter. Loud, maniacal laughter. Unfiltered as it streams from him, racking his body in such strength as doubled over. Clutching at his belly, the demons exchange a look of confusion and worry. The serpent-tongued one looking on hopefully. You will join us? Abruptly, his laughter comes to an end, even as he remains hunched over. Slowly, Akaza raises his head, allowing the demons to take a good look at his face, empty of any expression. Oh, he says, almost mournfully, to even grace Kyojiro's strength by believing someone such as yourselves can rise against him. A smirk twists his lips. That is itself is an offense. The serpent-tongued demon opens his mouth, likely to express his confusion. Whatever words he has been meaning to say, they never make it out. What sound from is garbled of pain, his head flying off of his body. His comrades stare at his head as it rolls across the ground. The demon's face slack in shock. Akaza flexes his finger, testing as if that had been enough of a warm-up. Well, he starts, wiping the blood off his palms onto his vest. If you polite demons understand, you'll be on your way. With a wretched cry, the horned demon launches itself at him. Asuka sighs, And here I thought we were going to get along so well. All it takes is the demon to go flying as a smack. The leader curses, rushing his way, as is the fourth, jaw gaping open to reveal a pair of morbid teeth. Asuka understands why he had kept his mouth shut the entire time. Their hands had hardly grazed him, and their blood streaming from their bodies, anguish and screams gurgling from their throats. In the end, the 5 bodies littered the ground at his feet. Brutalized in such horrific ways, even the regeneration abilities will not make it in time before the sun comes up. And Asuka's hand is in the throat of the throat of the smallest demon. His eyes big and large, he begs for forgiveness, yet he has had before, crawling at his neck. Asuka tilts his head, ignorant to the sobbing of the other as he hums. You've seen what's become of your friends, haven't you? The demon nods fanatically, sweat glistening on his forehead. Asuka tightens even further. Let this be a warning for what is to come to anyone who dares touch the flame pillar without my knowledge. With one final squeeze that has the demon's eyes rolling back, he lets go. The demon crumples onto the dirt, grasping at it for his ankles as he sweeps in frantic gratitude. Asuka clicks his tongue in disgust, kicking him off before he turns on his heel, making his way out once more. It is only when he is well on his way that he comprehends the gravity of what he has done. He curses under his breath. This may become a problem. Whenever it had been through the lips of the demon, he had spared it or not, it had quickly become known through the masses of demons that Rengoku Kojiro is the flame pillar and is not to be toyed with. Those foolish enough to attempt as such were warned off as the wrath they would suffer from the Upper Moon 3 if they dared to. Muzan had not said a word to Akaza regarding the situation. Perhaps he did not take notice, or simply did not care what Asuka did in his spare time, as long as he fulfilled his duty. And Asuka intends for it to stay that way. He intends to dutifully carry out the tasks subscribed to him. Search for the blue spider lily. Choke down the human flesh whenever it becomes necessary to do so. The Demon King may not have cared, but his fellow Upper Moons certainly did. It was due to pure misfortune that Asuka encounters the Upper Moon 2 on his way out of the Infinity Castle, where he had been summoned to offer his reports and findings. The third strongest demon is gaudy, as it always. Kaleidoscope eyes glinting, a perverse smile hidden behind his fan as he approaches Asuka. Akaza resists the urge to rip out his throat, open and tear the smirk off his lips. Well, Asuka, he croons. Already the demon can feel the impending headache throbbing behind his temple. We haven't chatted in such a while, and I hear all the rumors circulating about you. Asuka steadily ignores them, continuing to search for the exit. After a few centuries forced to deal with Domo, he mastered the art of feigning ignorance. Out of the two of us, I've always been fond of humans. So, imagine my surprise when I hear you have acquired a pet. A growl crawls up his throat, and he swallows it down. Who would have thought we're more similar than I imagined? Still, Akaza continues to pay him no mind. Striving forward, Domoro hums before he dipping in close, lips, breath against his ear. If I remember correctly, Rengoku Kyojuro, was it? Fine name indeed. His head turns sharply, features contorting into a snarl before he can stop himself. Domuro grasps in delight, giddy in getting out of the reaction he had been pestering for the other. I see why no one dares go near him. Truly fighting you are. His hand pats Asuka's stiff shoulder. Ignorant to warning glare, Asuka shoots at him. I cannot help but be distraught, however, that you didn't tell me, your friend, about this endeavor. He drapes his arm around the upper moon's shoulders, leering even closer. Why, if you had only mentioned this earlier, I would have understood your preference for eating men. Asuka's fist punches the square against his face, splitting the horrendous smirk into two. Shut your filthy mouth, he spits out, not bothering to wait for Domuro's head to materialize back as he stalks off. Remaining any longer would only serve as an excuse for the other to taunt him further. Emerging from the Infinity Castle, he does nothing to quell the rage flowing within him. He can only be grateful it is still early into the night, or else he would have had to remain behind with the trapped, insufferable Domuro, as he waited for the sun to set once more. It throbs at his head, the anger, the confusion, the magnificent array of emotion, all collapsed into him whenever he even thought of Kyojuro graced him. Before he knew it, he's moving, faster, faster, until he's breaking into a run. Nothing but a smear in the darkness as his feet slap against the ground, beds of his anklets clanking against each other. Where his destination is, he doesn't know, yet he continues to run and run until the molten fury cools, until even his thoughts are a blur, suffocated by the rush of the wind in his ears and the assault of the sights and scents from all his sides. Only then does he slow, not the slightest bit winded. His vision clears, allowing him to take in where he had led himself to. A choke, bitter laugh breaks free from his throat. Staggering forward, he takes a step, another one, and yet another one, before dropping his head into his hands, laughing, turning into gasps of breath, body shuddering. How ironic it is. When he's attempting to escape from his harrowing thoughts, his body has led him to the very place he had brought upon the beginning to such a turmoil, to a place that had led him into doubt everything he had ever believed in. Before him lies the devastation of the Mugen train. The deserted plain stretches before his eyes, going on for miles, and with it, memories rush back. Standing across Kyojuro, marveling in a way the other's names roll off his lip. Strength of his fighting spirit burning red and bright, sending goosebumps pampering down his skin, thrill seizing his soul, and he licked his lips in his anticipation. It has been years since he had given him a chance to battle before someone with such power. The first time a human's words had shaken him to the very core. His heavy footfalls resonate in quiet as he walks, dust picking up the settling once more about it around his feet. Even now, the images of their fight are painted clearly behind his eyeballs. Kyojuro's presence, his resolve impressive. Even the pillars, Akaza's first thought of his abdomen, demanding, nearly begging for the other to become a demon. If he listens hard enough, he thinks he can still hear the echo of Kyojuro's words, unshaken by his wounds. I will fulfill my duty. And he hadn't he? A wry smile crosses his lips. He has successfully protected every passenger on the train, along with those brats he called his juniors. Even if he had died that day, he would have still fulfilled the purpose so staunchly believed in. The smile dies away. Akaza coming to a stop. To the naked eye, there is nothing that sets apart a patch of land he stands on. To him, it's everything. Where Kijiro had stood, red blade brandished, unwavering even in the face of indeterminate doom, shot down every one of Asuka's propositions, countering them with his own proclamations, expressing the beauty of life and death, the strong and the weak, the youth and the age. It had stricken Asuka. How could such a warrior stand before him and spout this blasphemy when he had been gifted with such powers? He didn't get it. Where were we? I lost my place. Here, hold on. Alright, I really lost my place. Where was it? Last words where he didn't get it. I'm trying to find it again. Okay, there it is. Where is the beauty in growing frail and weak, and crumpling to his knees, just as Kyojuro had, battered and bruised, bleeding out to his death? The ground is hard against him as he sinks. But that had been before he had grown familiar with Kyojuro and the extent of his unwavering strength, his burning passion, his blunt kindness, even for Akaza, his enemy. Before his throat grew dry from the thirst, before his fingers spent every waking moment starving for the other's skin, before the memories of another life began to flicker before his eyes, every minute he spent with Kyojuro, seemingly bringing them on faster, clearer, the edges define the colors more and more saturated, heavy footfalls approaching him from behind. He doesn't turn. Akaza. More steps until the familiar sandaled feet peek in his peripheral vision. Akaza cranes his head, meeting a familiar yellow-ringed eyed. There's no surprise in his voice. He replies, Kyojuro. Who is the one following who now? I did not follow you, Kyojuro corrects. Without offering any further explanation, he kneels a little ways from Akaza, close enough that the Akaza truly wished to. He could easily close the space between them in the beat of a butterfly's wing. Tackle Kanjuro or Kyojuro, to the ground before the other could draw a breath. He stays in place, hands trapped under his arms. To keep them restrained, Kyojuro sets down his blade between them, not at his side, and Akaza wonders if the other's instinct to survive has truly dulled. Setting your weapon within range of your enemy, who can steal it if he wishes. A guaranteed method to end up dead. Not only is Kyojuro has put himself in a disadvantage by placing his blade between them, but today he seems to lack the vigilance that he carries with him ever so often. No wariness crosses his face while sitting outside the Upper Moon 3, no hand on his blade, to serve as a silent warning. All the tension in his shoulder that is ever present in Akaza's company is all but faded away. Oh, how far they've come from malicious sneers and lunging for the other's throat at the other waking moment, to sitting candidly at the other side. How did you know I was here? Kyojiro doesn't reply immediately, folding his hands into his lap. I thought you would be. For all the times Kyojiro had encountered him, Asuka had chosen to appear safely in the forest, where his presence would be hidden from them. Being alone would be guaranteed for Kyojiro to choose whether their first battle had taken place to search for him, the same day his body had led him to this very place. He drums his fingers on his thighs, humming, "You've grown to know me so well. Don't tell me you've come looking for me because you missed me." Silence stretches between them. Akaza releases a gustly sigh, tucking his arms behind his head. I'll take that as confirmation. A smirky plays against his lips. You're so eager to know. I miss you as well. Before those words had earned him the slash of a blade. Now Kyojiro offers no response. Only the sounds between them, the other's steady breathing, the distant hooting of owls. When he finally speaks, it is not of Akaza. Should have expected, but hadn't. Many demons seem to cease their attacks on me. He states, and Akaza tenses. I have pondered over it for days, and I've yet to reach a conclusion. Akaza's hands dropped down from where they had been pillowing his head so he could lean back on them, feigning nonchalance. And this concerns me. How? Would you know anything of it? The question is blunt, not wasting time and simply cutting at the chase, as expected of Kyojiro. Akaza snorts. Serious as always. Kyojiro, what makes you think I have had it in hand? There's a ruffle of fabric, Kyojiro shifting in place. I never implied you were behind it. So he hadn't. On any other day, Akaza has taken pride in his skills for dancing around the unwelcome topics before dashing away, leaving the conserver seething in annoyance. Today, however, doesn't seem like any other day. All it had taken for Kyojiro to step into his space, and any progress he had made had in picking through the tangled vines in his hand, that our thoughts had all been undone, the vines startling him once more. He covers up in his frustration with a laugh that is more of a sob. So, how protective of you, lifting himself from one side. He can leer closer. He inclines his head towards the other, grinning. Correct. The one keeping them away is indeed me. It is so subtle, he nearly misses it. If not how attuned Kyojiro had become, his fingers curling tighter, knuckles whitening. He clutches. You're curious, hmm? Why would I go to such lengths to deprive demons away from you? Even as fists clench tight, Kyojiro remains calm. Why? A laugh barks itself from him. Haven't I told you already? His neck cranes even further. As he presses any closer, their noses would brush. Because those demons are weak. They do not deserve the battle of the strong. Put to waste your strength. His voice deepens into snarl, thick with jealousy and obsession. Because the only one who is allowed to hurt you is me. His to hurt, to toy with, his to protect. Kyojiro's eyes train onto his own as he dips even closer, and now the puff of breath against his cheek is soft even, hitching just slightly as his words drop to a whisper. Because we're not as much as enemies as you delude us to be. The pillar's face hardens and breaks his gaze away. Akaza remembers. Once he had cradled Kyojiro's face, savored in the rabbit-quick heartbeat. He said in utter glee, perhaps you've begun to care for me. Because this strange relationship they navigate themselves through blindly, fighting not fight and not fighting, enemies and not enemies, cannot be summed up simply to animosity. If it had been so, one would have long ago grown red spider lilies on their own bodies, on the other's bodies, excuse me. If it had been so, Akaza would not have choked down the blazing fury, the burning desire down his throat every time they so much as threatened to spill. If it had been so, Kyojiro's hand that could surely end him would not have hesitated each and every time. The sunset in his eyes would have not been painted over in such a muddled shades of resistance and confusion and resentment, and most vividly Akaza's want to reflect in them. If it had been so, even every moment he spent with Kyojiro would have been dreamed invading his mind, murky and caked in age, in time. Dreams much belong to another, because Akaza cannot recognize them. But we can only be enemies, Akaza says, bitterness dripping from his words. This is the fate of a demon and a human, for our hands to be stained with blood of others. It doesn't have to be like this, Kyojiro murmured. Another bitter laugh, void of humor. Tell me then, Kyojiro. He turns on the other, sudden furiousness seizing him. How can this fate be changed? The fury boils. How terrible is it for the world to curse him like this? For him to encounter Kyojiro and fail to kill him. Birth of his colonel wants him in that he's only grown and grown, crushing his rib cage, choking his neck. Will you finally accept my offer? Become a demon, Kyojiro. Drives him insane, this anger, because he's never desired anything other than strength. Now that he has grown weak. Kyojiro does not supply him with an answer, and Akaza is not expected to. His shoulders sag heavily. At the end of the day, Kyojiro knows it is well within him. They are demon and human, no matter how their bodies, their souls strive to seek the other out. It cannot be. Even if somewhere deep inside him, tucked between the crevice of his ribs, he wished desperately otherwise. Akaza, the sound of his name on Kanjuro's lips brings him out in a stupor. He tilts his head back, drawing his eyes over the other's magnificent figure. Moonlight streams above them, turning the gold of Kyojiro's hair lighter into threads of silver. A gentle breeze whispers against his neck, twining through the short hairs there. From where it flutters around his shoulders, the pillar's hiyori now seems to be woven from silver as well, casting the halo of light around him. Become a human. For a single moment, there's nothing, no one. Only him and Kyojiro, suspended somewhere between the space of time. Their gazes locked on each other. Somewhere off in the distance, an owl hoots. The moment breaks. The chuckle that forces itself from him is far more genuine. It catches his lungs, bruises his ribs as he hacks it out. I didn't take you for one for jokes, especially ones as terrible as that. Kyojiro moves forward, a sense of urgency to him. He plants a hand on the ground. His brow is drawn together, forehead ceased. It's not a joke. Something twists in his gut, sick and dark. His smile disappears, and mirth fading off his face. Don't play me, Kyojiro. How could you be so shameless to ask me to become a human? Then continue to insist even as a joke. And it's not, Kyojiro repeats. It feels as his organs rearrange themselves within him as Kyojiro reaches out, holding out a hand to him. Akaza stares at it. A palm is withered and worn from wear and tear, countless battles that he had emerged from alive, a stark contrast of his own demonic body, regenerating so thoroughly, not even a scar is left behind. His gaze flickers back to the other. He's so brilliant and earnest, it nearly blinds him. Haven't they been here before? Months ago, when they had stood across from each other, just as they are now. Then their hands clenched around their weapons, and spite and despite it all, Akaza had still held out his hand, grinning. Become a demon, Kyojiro. And another time as well, in some past long, long ago, someone had called out his name, thrust out their hand to him. The watery figure blurs before his eyes, their lips forming around a cry. Become a human, Akaza. Where there should still be words. They're only emptiness, throats working around nothing. Are you hearing what you're saying? An offer. Kanjuro's hand remains where it had extended it, silent, hovering, an invitation, a proposition. Burning red meets fractured blue to counter yours. It's as if the very sky had collapsed onto him. The moon's in his tongue and stars in his lungs. Struggling to breathe past it, a dizzying spell takes hold of him. An image of Kyojiro. The sky, the world, bleeding into each other, wrapping into one. Whatever ploy this is to take me down, he somehow managed to grit out. I'll have none of it. It is in development, Kyojiro says, calm in face of Akaza's gnarnished teeth. A cure. Would I lie to you? A cure. To turn demons human. He grits his teeth once more. Cured. You think I wish to be, and soon enough, it will be ready, and demons will be no more. Kyojiro turns the golden gaze on him. And so I'm asking you, will you become human? His lungs struggle to expel the stars as he speaks. Digestive gravity of question offering the other asking him. His fingers tremble, mind reeling, with no regard of his own safety. Kyojiro dared to seek him out, to approach him after months of fighting in every encounter, to demand him of this? For Akaza, to become the very thing he despised, to become human. Humans were easily tempted, taunted, and tricked, thrown into their own deaths. Do you know who you're speaking to? Do you? His face twists into an ugly sneer. You sit here, ignorantly supplying me with information I can and will use against you. You disappoint me, Kyojiro. I had expected you, of all people, to never trust a demon blindly. Kyojiro's chin jerks up. It's foreign. Pure frustration contorts his features, unlike the firm and certain swordsman Akaza had grown to know. And you don't think I have not thought it over either. The words are a hiss. Why, the moment I heard the news of this cure, my mind thought of you. I had tormented myself days and nights, wondering why it was you and not anyone else. There must be a reason. So it is all the result of his wishful dreams. Akaza's head throbs. Who does he think he is, daring to ask him of such? Become a human? And why would I ever wish to become a human? He gives no chance for Kyojuro to speak, snatching his wrist between his fingers and yanking the other by the arm, splaying the other's fingers wide over his bare chest. You speak to someone who despises the very thought of weakness, who has spent years, centuries hunting down your kind. I have eaten countless men. I have killed and tortured countless more. I have reveled in their screams and their pain, all to carve this body I have now. A body created from the mountain of bones and rivers of blood. Can you feel it? The screams of those I have killed, crying out from the very body. You will continue to ask me to become human. His chest heaves at the rush of words. Humans, they have never given him a reason to pity them, nor regard them worthy of his respect. Then and now, they had picked him up, thrown him in the dust, and spat him as if he was nothing until he had grown too strong for them to dare to continue any longer. So why? Why, Kyojuro? He breathes out, his words almost pleading. A touch at his hand had him blinking down to find Kyojuro gently prying his fingers off his wrist, where his fingers had been collapsed around the bone. Angry red bruises flower akin to the skin. Even as he pulls them off, he does not let go, taking the demon's hand gently with him. His fingers smooth over the insides of Akaza's wrist, and the hunger had grown and grown in the cavern of his belly, shudders in delight to experience the beauty of humanity, of living and dying, of growing and aging, both in our bodies, our souls, our strength. His fingertips pressed against Akaza's palm. He can only watch helplessly, drawn in a trance. To be human! Finally he looks up, meeting Akaza's eyes. Means to learn true strength. He's quiet, and yet it's loud. Too loud. Against Akaza's ears, his eyes are too empty. He needs to crush something, destroy it into nothing. But when he curls his fingers, only Kyojuro's hand is there. It is all nonsense. What Kyojuro speaks of, he knows it must be. So why? Why do they linger? In his head, hidden away in the dark corners, but there, ever present, whispering to him, what if? What if Kyojuro? Kyojuro squeezes his hand. Somewhere along the drownings of his thoughts, their fingers have slipped together, the pillar's warmth palm against his own. And you're deserving of learning it is just much more than any demon. Speak, he must speak, before it spirals out of control, before Kyojuro invades every part of him. He is not already. I pondered over it endlessly, Kyojuro says, voice getting louder. Just as you have. Why? Why refuse to eat women? Why target those who have inflicted pain into others' families and children when you could very well, devour whoever you see fit. Akaza's head snaps up, eyes widening. How had Kyojuro learned that? Why insist on shadowing me in every move, taking care of me when you could have easily done with me what you wished? Chained me down, used me to fulfill your own selfish motivations. His tongue stutters, hesitates. Adam's apple bobbing in shallow. He still plunges on. The steely glint of determination of Akaza has puzzled over the bright in his eye. Why, even as it is my duty to rid of this world of you. A whistle of breath, clenching of knuckles. Does my heart yearn for you as it does? There's a strange, loud thump, thump, thump sound, as if someone is beating their hands against a drum. It resonates through him, shaking to his core, scraping against his eardrums. It takes everything for him not to clamp his hands over his ears. Nothing seems to drown it out. Akaza stares at Kyojuro, and it grows louder. Oh, he realizes. With sudden clarity, it's his heart. The other keeps his gaze steady as Akaza can hear it. Kyojuro's own heart, thumping so furiously, it may as well sound and burst, the bewitching sound of which seems any demon and sends any demon into frenzy, relentless until they are ripped open, the human's chest, and procure the still beating heart in their blood-stained hands. An even stranger settles over Akaza. He remembers the absolute certainty. He has been here before. Heartbeat quick, throat dry, chest squeezing painfully from a pounding heart of his heart. A touch on his wrist, the swell in his chest cresting higher. The fervent pain sears through him, body jolting. He persists through the pain, chasing after the fading memories. Dark hair. Huh. Are you all right? Clouded over the eyes, snap to Kyojuro. The shadows shift and the red in his eyes seem to deepen, shifting in the color of purple of skies and day-old bruises. It must be all in his head, because he blinks and it's gone. Despair clouds over him, only to be flooded by rage. He despises it. This control Kyojuro has over him. Fingers tangled in the strings of Akaza's puppet. Whether he knows it or not, tugging on the strings with little care of Akaza, sending him scrambling, bringing questions he's never thought to wander over mind. He now curls his finger tighter onto the strings, wraps them into his wrists, and draws him closer until Akaza can see, hear, smell, taste, feel what is Kyojuro. Kyojuro despises how more times he spends with Kyojuro, the more he slips. Desperate fingers clutching at the edge. How when Kyojuro even touches him, the dormant beast in his stomach rears its head, begging him to devour him. How memories stain the layers of dust creep in his mind uninvited, invading the space there, making him wonder over time, where has he learned happiness and had been content before. He doesn't remember, and the fact he wants to, yearns to, his rib cage constantly, painfully, breath rushing out of him, a hand laid on his shoulders. He chases to find it to be Kyojuro. There's nothing but genuine concern on his face, and that too he despises. His skin burns where Kyojuro had touched. Now even Akaza had done nothing but Kyojuro reasons to loathe him. The other turns a blind eye and treats him as if he had no different from him. The other cranes his head forward, forcing Akaza to look at him. Akaza, Kyojuro's hair is so gold, his eyes so red. Akaza wants to. He wants to throttle his neck. Rip into him scarlet ribbons. Hold him to his chest. Embrace him with the utmost gentleness. Decorate his wrists with iron chains. Hide him away from the world. Never let him see the light of day. Walk hand in hand with him into daylight. Gaze at the sun overhead. Sink his teeth into his neck. Taste his blood and feast on the cries of pain and pleasure. Feel the bareness of his skin against Akaza's own. His vision blurs red, red, red. Red of the sunset, red of the sunshine, red of Kojuro's eyes, red of his flames, red of his blood. One moment he is seated on the ground, Kyojuro's hand in his arm. The next he is lunging. Kyojuro jerks back. The first shreds the terror crosses his face, but it's too late. Akaza's hand closes around his throat. They fall. The demon pinning Kyojuro down by the neck. It's an echo before when Akaza had held the other to the ground. Then he tucked the locks of sunrise stained hair between his fingers and wondered, thumbed away the blood on his cheekbone. Now his fingers curl around Kyojuro's throat. Unforgiving, the taste of blood is thick on his tongue. His body trembling from willpower it takes to restrain himself. His breathing comes short and heavy, chest heaving. You think I deserve to be human, Kyojuro? Akaza breathes out, lowering himself until they are but inches apart. When I have betrayed the trust you wrongfully placed on me. You regret it, don't you? You croon on about the beauty of humanity, and this is so-called true strength, when it is what humanity that weakens you. You have made the fatal mistake of reflecting your view of humans into a demon, your enemy, and now here you are, your life in my hands. The sound of Kyojuro's heart going wild in fear, of his blood rushing through his veins, drowns out any of the soul sounds of Akaza's ears. Yes, he thinks, even as some part of him is pathetic and disgusting protests, loathe me, so I will loathe you as well. You, Kojuro coughs, as Akaza holds tighter, grasping for breath. Are mistaken. Mistaken? Akaza chortles darkly. I don't think so, Kyojuro. Here can I do anything I want with you. I can let you go, or keep you here under my hand. I can end it all, once and for all. I can. His head bows lower against the crook of the pillar's neck, breathing, breath kissing against the skin there, where he had left his mark twice. The desire to lick the stripe of his neck is nearly overwhelming. Under him, Kyojuro shudders, no doubt recalling the phantom pain. Use you in any way I desire. Kill you, devour you, fuck you. Kyojiro shakes his head, curls tossing with him. He's utterly wicked, struggling draw of air, eyes glistening with tears from his loss of oxygen. Some sick part inside Akaza delights at the sight. A shaking breath shudders from his lips. You would not do that, Akaza. He sneers at the pathetic display, quoting his words earlier. And oh, Kyojiro, you know me so well. The pillar sucks in a desperate breath, because you're more human than any humans I've ever met. The taunt dies on his tongue. His fingers loosen. He freezes against the side of Kyojiro's neck, not daring to breathe. Kyojiro's chest rises and falls against his, tackling the chance to greedily inhale the oxygen he can. I would not have said it had I not seen it, he says breathlessly. But I have. You claim to despise humans, but yet you protect me. You take care of me. You dismiss the thoughts of your past because you do not wish to dwell on what causes you pain, although you desperately wish to remember. You fight and fight, searching for something to protect with its strength, but fail to find it. You, Kyojiro's hands, blindly reach for him, calloused fingers finding the sides of his face to pull him down. You are meant to be human. How peculiar this is. His limbs are heavy as iron. Shackles have been fastened around his wrists and ankles. It is as if he is being pulled underwater. Water filling his lungs, colors blurring before his eyes. Kyojiro's touch against his face, distant, far away. Like girl swathed in a pink yukata, snowflakes tucked into her hair. She brightened up and catches the sight of Akaza, hand reaching out to him, lips moving in soundless words. Akaza desperately tries to read them, reaching back to her. His hand touches her. She crumbles before his eyes. Kyojiro's voice is thick with amazement. His thumbs press against Akaza's cheekbones. Numbly, he reaches up to touch his in the face with clumsy hands, fingers coming away wet. The taste of salt crystals bloom on his tongue. Salt? So even demons are capable of crying, I see. Akaza's gaze moves back down to Kyojiro. His eyes are softened, even wondrous hands gentle on his face. Small hands on cheeks, just as gentle as Kyojiro's. His hands scramble to his face, wet. They're stained in wetness. Scent of salt so strong, he nearly gags. He spots a dot on his vision, panic building up in his chest. What is this? Pat on his back. Congratulations on the job well done. His chest swelling with pride. He doesn't. Kyojiro's hand burned against his skin. A croak of pain falling from his lips with desperation he hasn't felt in years. Akaza tears himself from his grasp, staggering backwards. Colors, scents, images burst behind his eyes, scattered, clouded over nothing. Nothing he can make sense of. It burns inside. Bones liquefy into molten lava. His nails scratch against himself, to rip open his skin, pour out the fire. Akaza. The same small hands, cold. A sorrow greater than any he has ever felt washing over him. Stay away, Kyojiro. The growl is nothing short of monstrous, promising nothing but death. Poison drips from his sentences, bubbling and frothing. I will never become human. So take your ideals far away. And next time we meet, white-hot pain implodes at his skull as he wants to claw it open. The gaze lock eyes like ice, glaring red. It will be as true enemies. What had been gentle breeze is now scathing, howling monster back against his back as he bolts through the forest, heart swelling, straining against his rib cage. His legs aches from exhaustion. He has not felt since he had become a demon. Body screaming, hunger gnawing, head spinning. Something flutters free from his vest. Small and yellow, he snatches it, opening his palm. The yellow flower he begun pluck weeks ago lay innocently, long dried out, its color faded. Against all odds, the red remains, rich and strong, striving through it all. The vicious snarl vibrates his throat. His fingers curl, crushing the flower into dust. Akaza had flown too close to the sun, and now he was burning up. Wax feathers pulling into nothing but bittersweet regret and burning despair. Next time we meet, it will be as enemies. Alright, that was a bit longer than I thought it would be. And, definitely an interesting one. Yeah, a little bit of yaoi there, I guess. I want to see how long this one is before I get into it. I don't think we're going to be able to do this one. This is a multi-chapter one. So we're not going to get to the Sword Art Online one that is, quote, the 14th night, which has something really, I guess an original character brought in or something. I don't know. We'll have to get to it at another time. I thank you all for joining in. This was an unusual thing. If you want to see this more often, we'll do it again. We'll probably do it again anyway. But it'll be up to, what you guys want. Do you want to keep doing the romance? Do you want to do the action? Do you want to do the comedy? Or something else? We can go through fanfiction.net, or, as always, you can submit a story. That is part of what we do here. We try to do stuff that people request, be it the stories or be it the art on our Dining and Doodles. This is Storytime. We do the stories live. Next week, we will be back with some more 11 Kingdoms, I believe. That's what we'll get back into. We'll continue on from where we left off in the story. And then at the end of the month, we'll probably conclude our current story with some more of the Mobster X Maid Girl. But for now, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week, and a wonderful